Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Radio Entrepreneurs. My name again is JDavis. I'm the host for the show. And just to remind you, we continue to stream on multiple sites as we start to approach 8,000 interviews since our initial launching of the show. Today, we have a multiple returning guest in John Dustin, CEO of JED Insurance. Welcome back, John.
Jeff, great to be back.
You know, John, it seems like the world of insurance is changing every day now, and the way entrepreneurs need to look at protecting their business and their own personal assets is changing. Is that correct?
That is correct, Jeff. And I think for the first time in several decades, the insurance companies are trying to figure out how they can respond to catastrophic losses, ever-increasing supply chain issues, increasing costs to rebuild homes, replace commercial buildings, the cost to repair cars, and the ever-rising medical costs that affect bodily injury claims. So with the insurance industry shifting to modeling, you can always predict frequency in a model. You can never predict severity.
Right.
And I think the companies and trying to figure out a way to collect enough premium to stay solvent. So the business owners and the people with nice homes need to make sure they're being served well by whoever their advocate is, and make sure that they understand how the building replacement cost is configured and what they can do beyond regular insurance to protect themselves, whether it's do retention, higher deductibles, maybe self-insure certain things. Insurance is just a piece of the pie of the risk management pie. It's a very, it's a big part of it, but it's just a small piece of that whole configuration.
So you're really saying it's part of an overall strategy. And I'm sure a lot of entrepreneurs don't take the time to sit down and think this through. So you can tell us about the pros and cons of thinking it through, doing a strategy, and those who think that they can cut corners and not do a plan.
Well, it's funny you say that, Jeff. A lot of business owners start a business or enter into a contract and they go get insurance. They get what's statutorily required, like workers' comp and auto. And then they layer upon it things that somebody suggests. But they never evaluate all the assets on their balance sheet, their intangibles, what other things can go wrong, a cyber attack, an employment claim for harassment, and they don't always read their contracts. So in our world now, we call it risk transfer. All of the big companies push down on the smaller companies' requirements. And I find oftentimes that people don't read the requirements, so they're going to have a contractual breach. It's not that expensive and hard to figure out, okay, we're signing an agreement, what's required, what do we really need, can we go back? But I don't think people take the time to evaluate. And a lot of times when people are shifting vendors, they give them what they have, their current policies, and they quote off that. There could be changes in operation, reductions, increases, acquisitions that occurred, even on the personal side.
Wow. It's true. In my sitting in meetings in businesses, which I do every day, mostly family businesses, they're never they rarely talk about their whole insurance strategy. And when it does come up, it's because I bring it up and it's an important, or the attorney does, as an important part of them looking at their full compensation and protection of the business and their assets.
And another thing that occurs, whenever you put a risk management strategy, even for a small business in place, you have to monitor and review it. And I think that's where a lot of things go south. A lot of times they buy it and then they never hear from their provider or vendor again, and they assume they're all set, and things occur that change. It's interesting with, I know you're a business culture person. I think with all the social and political things going on right now, even board of directors are starting to say, boy, we have more than a for-profit purpose, but all of those things they're looking at encompass exposure on the business side.
Correct. Well, you talk about, assets, most of us, we live in Massachusetts, live near the ocean, and there's a lot of issues with flooding, Cape Cod, the North Shore, but through the whole coastal area. And, I've seen it in Florida, insurance rates tripling on homes, on buildings, people not having the right coverage, losing insurance providers. So you're right, catastrophic insurance is really important. If you work your whole life to build assets and then your asset gets destroyed, what good was it?
And a lot of coastal properties, Jeff, you hit a good point. A lot of coastal properties may not be just subjected to flood. They're more subjected to windstorm. And some of the contracts now carry $100,000 windstorm deductibles, 2%, 5% of the dwelling. Commercial buildings, same thing. And I think what you're seeing right now is contraction and lack of capacity on the coast for the carriers, and the carriers that are there are struggling to survive, insurance companies. So I think, on a personal line side, the rate increases have occurred because the insurance companies are losing money based on all the things we discussed. And I think a lot of times people are, you deal with insurance generally when you have a loss. and
Sorry.
and until you have a loss, you don't really know what you have, right? I mean, that's generally a consensus among people. Oh, I didn't know until a loss occurred.
Well, I mean, I'm not the person who pays for the insurance for my home, but wind is the bigger issue where I live and in my whole neighborhood. My whole neighborhood looks out, I like to say, towards Nova Scotia, and it's not unusual in the winter to get very bad storms and I've had high winds over 90 miles an hour in the last 2 years, 3 times.
Yeah. And so that's one aspect. I think, the wildfires in the Midwest, I think you could go on and on with various things that have occurred globally that have affected insurance companies from, making a small profit even.
Well, you've been an entrepreneur for a long time, but I assume, if I would have told you 20 years ago how much knowledge you had to retain to stay up to date, would you have believed me? And to stay informed.
I'm kind of a lifelong learner, but I think with all the changes that have occurred, not only in the insurance industry, business in general, requirements, accounting requirements, HR requirements, and I do think that's where a Jeff Davis and these other consulting companies plug in. I tell companies, focus on what you're good at, create a value chain, and anything that's not in your circle or wheelhouse, you find professionals to handle for you, whether it's accounting, taxation, cyber coverage, technology at your office, human resources. Look at Massachusetts with the human resources. You went from everybody being on site to remote to hybrid, people fighting about that. Then you had the PFMLA get engaged. I mean, there's just so many things going on in all circles. Marketing's changed. I mean, nobody does regular advertising anymore. It's all directed on social media.
Correct. I know that keeping people informed is very good. I know last month you put on a seminar sponsored in downtown Boston at Faneuil Hall.
And the host was excellent there.
Yeah, well, it's okay. Well, you continue to pursue keeping your clients informed and the public informed. And I think that's an important part of what you do. If someone wants more information about insurance, the changing landscape, how would they find you?
So on the internet at www.jedinsurance.com, email john.dustin@jedinsurance.com, or pick up the phone, the mobile phone or your regular phone, and dial 508-543-1067.
Well, great, John. You've been a guest many times on Radio Entrepreneurs, and we look forward to seeing you as we get closer to 2024 coming back again. And I want to remind all our listeners, this is Radio Entrepreneurs.